One of the biggest shocks in my adult life was realizing that I was never disciplined in the first place. I never learned how to be disciplined and how to work hard properly, right? And let me explain what I mean by that, right? So when I was in school, I essentially had a very great upbringing, right? I had probably the most idyllic childhood you can probably ever imagine. I had great parents, who instilled a love of learning and reading and being good in school. Like, that was very important to me. And from the third grade onwards, I've always gotten A's, right? And so here's the thing. Every time I got an A, I would get a good grade, I'd bring it home. My parents are proud of me. They're smiling. My teachers are proud of me. They're smiling. The kids look up to me and they're like, oh man, Anu, you're so good at this. Like, could you help me out with my homework or with this concept? I don't really understand it. So I get a little bit of status too, So I get a good outcome. I get rewarded for said outcome. So of course I'm incentivized to get that outcome again. And literally just that one feedback loop carried me from third grade through the end of college. Just that one feedback loop. I continue to get A's. And when I tell you, I literally never had to force myself to sit down and study and to work hard. I'm telling you this with 100% honesty. I literally never had to lock in or had to be disciplined or had to force myself to sit down and study or do homework or anything like that because I wanted to. I genuinely wanted to. It was actually more fun to me to do all of this stuff, studying and working hard, that it literally didn't feel like work. I would actually prefer to do that over any other of the activities that I could have been doing. Like, that's how much I enjoyed it and how much I wanted to do it. And so, of course, once I get out into the workforce and I'm outside of this academic environment, things are a little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging. So, my job, right? I'm a run plant engineer in a chemical plant, which is essentially, if you don't know what that is you're running a chemical plant. You're in charge of keeping this plant running 24/7, making product, right? And so the first 6 months of training, I'm just learning. And then after that, you actually start running the plant. You're actually on the job and doing the thing that you need to do, right? And when I tell you that I sucked at my job for the first 3 months, I sucked, for sure. And so that was where it was really hard for me to sit down and actually do the work that I would need to do to actually improve and actually get good at my job, right? I would procrastinate and do all these other stuff, like all these small improvement things that I could be working on. And it would be very hard for me to sit down and actually work on the things that would that would help me improve at being a good run plant engineer. The only times I actually would really focus on work on the plant was when there was a deadline or okay, there's an urgent issue at the plant, we need to resolve this right now. That's the only way I was able to actually learn, which is kind of disappointing, right? It's kind of sad. And what I'm just realizing now is that the reason I had that problem was that I didn't have that feedback loop that I had in school. In school, there was no need for discipline because I had this feedback loop where I'd get an A and my report card comes home, my parents are happy, teachers are happy, they're like, oh man, you're so smart, Anu. My friends, they're like, oh man, help me with my homework, right? I get offered jobs to become a teaching assistant, which I took, and I was rewarded as a teaching assistant as well for being a good teaching assistant. Like, oh man, you explain the concepts really well. So obviously I wanted to learn things and be the best that I could be. And I never had to force it. And so the big thing that I want you to take away here, the world rewards outcomes. It rewards results, not the effort you put into it. It doesn't reward you for the hard work you put in or for the discipline or for locking in. Until you get the outcome, you don't get the reward. If you work hard and you get a C, even if it's better than your previous grade, maybe before studying you would have gotten a D or you would have failed the test, right? Even though you made that improvement, no one's going to come and congratulate you. You're not going to get that status until you become that A player, right? Until you become that A student. And so it's hard. It's hard to put in the work. It's hard to put in the work that'll actually get you to a point where you start making A's. And this is where I think discipline actually comes in. This is what discipline actually is doing the work that is necessary before you get the result. Because doing the work after you get the result is easy. That's not discipline. That's just momentum. That's just a feedback loop. That's all it is. Doing the work before you get a result, that's discipline. That's hard. Now, a couple of things that I was just thinking about, like, okay, how can we actually implement this in our lives, and how can we actually become more disciplined, right? I'm still working on this myself. I've not solved this by any means, but here's some ideas that I've picked up, right? And so the first thing to do is actually start your feedback loops sooner. So for example, I was a teaching assistant, right? I used to help people with differential equations, with coding. I did a CS class as well. I TA'd for some of my chemical engineering classes. So I did a variety of different classes. And in each one of these classes, my main goal, of course, was to help students. I got a lot of pleasure from helping people and making sure that they succeeded. And the biggest thing that I noticed is that the students that tended to do well, I would give them positive feedback very early on, not for getting good grades, but for understanding concepts. So maybe I explain it to someone. I explain a difficult concept to someone and they get it, they understand it. I'm like, great, I have this smile on my face. I'm like, great, because obviously I'm also happy that I was able to explain it to them. You know, I felt good as a teacher. So that was a good thing. But I rewarded for them. If they did a problem by themselves, I was like, okay, try this problem by yourself and walk me through it. And they were able to do it without me helping. I feel good. So I'm like, okay, that's good. I smile, all right? And so what I'm really doing is I'm actually starting the feedback loop for them sooner. So they haven't gotten the ultimate outcome, which is the A on the test or passing the class or whatever their ultimate goal is, right? They haven't gotten that yet, but they're still getting positive feedback for the effort they're putting in. And I realized, okay, as a TA, I could do this for other people, but we can also do that for ourselves. We can congratulate ourselves for the small wins, and we can even start feedback loops on the effort we put in. Yes, the world will only reward you for your results, for your outcomes. They'll only reward the A students. But you know what? You can actually reward yourself for your effort. You don't have to follow what the world does. You don't have to reward yourself only when you get an A. You can reward yourself for putting in some hard work. You can reward yourself for showing up. You can reward yourself for being disciplined. And this is actually a feedback loop if you do this in a non-cringy way, right? Like, obviously, I'm not asking you to go to the mirror and spit out positive affirmations like, oh, you're so awesome, you put in the hard work today, good job. Like, you don't need to do that, right? But by rewarding yourself and saying, hey, I'm a person who can do this, I'm a person who is disciplined, you reward yourself for the hard work. Now you start a feedback loop. So then the next day, it becomes a little bit easier to do the hard thing. And the next day after that, it becomes a little bit easier. And then a little bit easier. And then a little bit easier. And then eventually you reach a point where, oh, it's actually really easy to do the work, even though I haven't achieved the result yet. And then once you achieve the result, well, then there's nothing to worry about. You just continue on with momentum. It's very easy at that point. So with that, again, I'm still figuring this out. I'm not going to pretend that I haven't solved this. For me personally, I'll be completely vulnerable with you. I want to start a business. That's something that I'm really passionate about, and preferably something with artificial intelligence, with AI. But something I'm really scared of is sales, right? I haven't had that positive feedback yet with sales, where I close a bunch of sales and I feel like an A player. If I took a sales test right now, I would probably fail. So it's hard to get that feedback loop. But as best as I can, I'm trying to reward myself for the inputs. Oh, you did the outreach today. That's good. And then for the small wins, like, oh, even though I didn't close this person, I had a pleasant conversation with them. I wasn't like immediately shut down. Okay, that's good. I'm starting to understand a little bit of sales things. I'm starting to learn a little bit more about sales. And so by turning it into that, my hope is that eventually I'll reach that point where discipline becomes easier. Sitting down and doing the outreach and doing the work becomes easier. And I don't have to force myself or lock in as much to get things done. Anyways, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you tomorrow in the next one.